Now you know how to repeat certain blocks of code when you know how many times you want to run that block of code. So as a lazy programmers, we often don't want to write same line of code more than one time. Okay, so how you can avoid the repetition of the code? So for that we can use for loop, definitely while loop also we can use. But let's say together there are some big block of code, and that certain code you want to run it repeatedly, and you want to run it only when you want to run it. So how can you do that? So without further delay we will start that. But if you are new to our channel, this video is a part of Python for data science video series that we are doing here. So if you have not checked out our other videos, make sure that you check out other videos so you understand what we are talking about. So let's get started with the Python functions. Now let's take one block of code that we have already practiced in our previous video. So let's see that. So that code is for factorial. So how can we take a factorial of a number? So this is a block of code. I will just copy paste this. So this is that code. So basically when we run this code, what happens is that we enter a number. Suppose we are entering the number 4, and if I hit the enter, so it will give me a factorial for the 4. So what is the factorial I have written here? So factorial for 4 will be 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So that's it. That is what basically what a factorial is. But each time if you want to get factorial, you don't want to run this same code. You don't want to write this all these 6 or 8 lines again and again, right? If you want to take the factorial for same another number, let's say that you have a list, and for list of numbers, and for that list of number you want to take a factorial for each of that number. So you will not manually like run this statement and enter that see a number and enter that number from the list each time, right? So what we do, we pack this block of code inside a function, and let's see how we can do that. So to do that, what we use basically, so we use and this is called as a defining a function. So how we do that? We write def keyword. So we write def keyword. After that we have to give a name to our function, and for our function our name is going to be let's say fact as a factorial. Okay, so this is the name of our function. So after that I give a colon, and when I hit the enter, so it gets indented. What I will do now, I will copy this one, the entire code, and I will enter it here. And there are some changes that I have to do. First I have to make sure the indentation is correct. Okay, this should be indented, and the print. Okay, so indentation seems right. So if I try to run this code, it is not going to give any output, because right now this code, it's like you can say that this code is sleeping right now, and it is not going to run when you are going to run this cell. To run this code, you have to call this function. So then only your code will be get executed inside a function. So this is the magic, true magic of a function. So let's say I want to get a factorial. So I will just write fact, and I will just now I will run this cell, and now my code will run. What will be the number? I will enter the 4, and now I am getting the output as 24. So this is the basic structure of a function. Like first we define of our function, after that we call our function, then our block of code inside that function, then it starts to execute only when we call it. So mostly what we do, sometimes we define the function but we forget to call. It happens with it still happens with me sometime. So you have to remember this thing. And we are not finished yet. This is just the basic thing that a function can do. What else we can do? We don't even need this input function that we are trying to take a input from a user. What else we can do is that I will simply copy this function and I will paste it here. Okay, so what I will do, I will comment out this line, and now I want to give a input inside this. I will also call this function so it will run. Okay, so I think, yeah, so I will call this function and now let's see what happens. Now I am getting an error as an unbound error, local variable num referred before assistance. So see, getting an error while learning is the must. You should get an error. If you are not getting any kind of error while you are learning, then basically maybe you are just copy pasting the code from some website or somewhere and just not doing on your own and not facing issues. So facing issues is good. So how can you solve? So inside a function we can have a parameters and arguments. So basically mostly what people don't know what is the exact difference between that, but let me tell you here. So I will write here num. Okay, and as a number I am going to enter a 4, and now I will run this code. So I am getting the output. So what is this here? This number is called as a parameter and this value 4 is called as an argument. So for parameter we enter a value that is nothing but argument. So this is the difference. Mostly what people say that this is a parameter, this is a parameter. People will get little bit confused between these terms. Basically this means the same thing, but parameter is defined when we write a function, and argument is a value that we assign to that parameter. It's nothing but a variable, and that value gets inside the function. So the variables that you have inside a function, first you have to write as a parameter and provide them an argument. Let's say if I provide 2 arguments at the same time, let's see what happens right now. This is going to give me an argument error, type error it is giving me. Takes 1 positional argument but 2 were given. So this is the case with that. The number of parameter and the arguments that you are providing should match. What else can you do with a function? If you see here, I can also write some general info about a function using a docstring. So docstring is nothing but indentation block. It is actually auto completing. So I will just hit the tab and I will show you. So what it does, it is now going to give me some description about that function. So when I'm going to I will run this code first. Okay, so if I hover my mouse over the fact, then it is giving me that information, whatever I have written there. This function calculates the factorial of a number. Isn't it beautiful? Like, even if you don't know, let's say that you don't know what this function do, you can just hover your mouse over that function, just hold for a sec, and that will tell you what that function is going to do for you. So this is also a good habit to write docstring. Like if you are going to work in a team, then other people might don't know that what is that function is going to do. They can simply go through your docstring and they can know what your function is all about. Take a good look at our example, and right now what we are using a while loop here to solve this particular example. But think for a minute and just pause this video, and when you are going to pause, think about it, that can you solve this particular example by using only functions. You don't have to use while loop here. Can you do that? Pause this video and think about it. So let's try to do this task by only using function. So let's first define a function as a, what is our function name is fact, and in that we will give argument, parameter. See, I am still confused. The parameter and argument. So we will write parameter inside a function, and when we are going to call that function, we will give argument inside it. Okay, so I will hit the enter. Now I will check if our number is equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, then I will return, I will return value 1. So what is a return? So whenever it is like a last step in any function. So when we give a return, so it just returns that value as an output of that function. It just don't print it out. It actually returns that value, and after returning that value, you can assign that value to some another variable. Let's see by using this how can we do that. So I will return 1, and if that is not the case, if our number is other than 0, then what we will do, we will return and our number into, what I will do now, I will again call the function, but this time I will reduce its number to 1. So what will happen, it will go inside this, again it will call to that function, but this time this number is going to be by -1, and it will again come to this situation. And what will happen basically here, it will create a loop, and it will basically it will happen like this. So this will happen 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 while we are going to do this return statement. Let's try to run this code. Let's see if it works. So I will do fact, and inside that I will give an argument. Okay, number is a parameter, 4 is argument. So let's see if we are getting a right output. So this is happening, we are getting the right output. So what is happening here, basically we are calling the function inside a function, and it will call it, and at a certain point our number is going to be 0, and at that time it is not going to call any function. It will simply return the value 1, and by multiplying the value 1, it is not going to affect any values. Okay, so we will get our factorial. This is little bit tricky for now you to understand, but you as you practice more, you will understand this concept. So this concept is called as, like, calling a function within a function is called as a recursion. Inside functions we have one more important concept, that is global variable and local variable, and let's see what is it. So let's create one variable first, and let's assign any value to it. Let's say 23, x is equal to 23, and I will create a dummy function. I will just create any dummy nothing special. So inside our dummy function we are going to create one more variable, let's say y, which is equal to 32. Okay, and what else we are going to do? There is nothing else that we are going to do. That's it. This is our function. Okay, so inside this function I will try now to print value of x, and I will try to print value of y and value of x. Let's see what happens when we try to do that. This is best method to learn. Just do it by trial and error. So let's see how if we are going to successfully run our code or not. Right now we are able to successfully run our code. I will just write here for your understanding. This is a global variable, and the variable which is inside a function, we call that as a local variable. Local. Okay, so the variable which is inside a function, we call that as a local variable, and a function which is outside of the function, we call it as a global variable. And let's try to do some funny things. Now what I will do, I will try to call separately print y. I have already assigned a value to 32. Okay, let's see what happens now. If I try to print y outside of the function, I am getting a name error. And when we get a name error, when we don't assign any value to a particular variable, or if that variable don't exist. For right now, this y value does not exist outside of its local scope. That is nothing but outside of this dummy function. We cannot access the local variable. So this is the main concept. You can access the global variable within the local scope, but you cannot access the local variable in a global scope, in a global field. Okay, so but let's say you want to force your function to act like it is a you also want to, let's say, access this y outside in a global scope. How can you do that? Let's see that. To do this, what we can do, we can declare our variable y as a global inside a function by using global keyword. So I will write global, and I will write the variable name, that is y. And what I will do now, I will just do some reordering. First I will call the function, so our code gets executed and we actually declare the value of y. Okay, and we declare y as our global variable. So let's see what happens now. If I try, sorry, I should not enter any parameter, any argument there. So let's try to see what happens now. So when we use our global keyword, our local variable becomes available outside of its local scope. In a global scope, it is available now. In this short amount of time, you learn really lot of concepts. So I think we should do a quick revision on this. So let's see from the start how we can define a function. What are these concepts? So our main motive was to avoid repetition of certain blocks of code that we want to execute repeatedly. To avoid repetition, what we do, we use functions. And how we write a function? By using def keyword, we create a function, we write a block of code that we want to repeat. Okay, and then what we do, we call the function. It is important to note that without calling a function, our code which is inside a function, it's actually in a sleep mode and it does not run even if we run that particular cell. It only works when we call that function. Okay, this is it for this. And what we can do else, what we can do is that we can also pass some parameters, arguments to our parameter for that function, and we don't need to use like input method to enter any value to our function. We can simply do that by using the arguments. Okay, and the main difference between parameter and argument is that parameter is used when we are going to create a function, and what is going to be your arguments? Argument is nothing but the value that you pass to that parameter. Okay, so that is called as an argument. So 4 is an argument and num is a parameter. Let's move forward. And you can also use docstring to write information about your code, like what is this block of code is all about. You can write inside this docstring. And we also saw about recursion method, that is nothing but calling a function inside a function. Okay, so and after that what we saw is nothing but a global variable and local variable for our functions. So global variable is available inside a local scope, and local variable is only available inside a local scope unless and until you declare it as a global, then only it will be available outside of its local scope, that is nothing but a global scope. So that's it for today for Python functions. I know that some concepts are little bit tricky to get at first, but as you practice this concept more and more by writing more and more code, these concepts will become your second nature and you will use it without even knowing it. Okay, and it is going to make your life lot easier. So if you liked this video, then make sure that you subscribe to our channel, share this video with your friends who are also learning Python. So that being said, keep smiling, keep coding, and let's see the bright side together. See you in our next video.